There is a road where time doesn't move forward. It crashes, screams, and dies the same way again and again. Welcome back to Hidden Dark World, where forgotten places hide the darkest secrets and reality itself feels unstable. If you love true horror mysteries, time loops, and stories that stay with you long after the video ends, subscribe now, because the stories told here don't let you escape. And before the story begins, tell me in the comments, do you prefer time loop horror, true unexplained mysteries, or cursed locations? I read every comment, and some of them may lead us to the next nightmare. No sign marked it on modern maps, yet locals still avoided it with instinctive fear. The asphalt stretched for barely 3 miles through dense pine forest, but every accident report, every police archive, every whispered warning pointed to the same place, Morrow Bend Road. What made it terrifying wasn't the number of crashes, it was the pattern. A truck overturning at the same curve in 1952, a family sedan hitting the same tree in 1977, a speeding bike slamming into the same guardrail in 2009. Same time, same weather, same injuries, even the same final words reported by survivors. The road changed. Officials blamed coincidence, engineers blamed poor lighting, but the forest knew better. Trees bore scars from decades of impact, layered like rings of memory. The road wasn't dangerous, it was remembering. The earliest record came from 1931, handwritten and nearly forgotten. A horse-drawn delivery cart collapsed near the bend just after sunset. The driver, Elias Moore, was found dead without visible injuries, eyes wide open, fingers clawed into the dirt as if he'd tried to hold the road itself. Witnesses said the horse refused to move, screaming until it collapsed. The coroner ruled it heart failure. But Elias's diary told a different story. His final entry read, "I swear I saw another cart ahead of me, broken, burning, but it vanished when I blinked. That cart wouldn't exist for another 21 years, yet the crash would happen exactly there, exactly the same way. Time had already slipped once, no one noticed." By the 1960s, patterns became impossible to ignore. Police photographs showed near-identical crash angles decades apart. Bloodstains reappeared after rain. Skid marks returned even after repaving. Survivors described seeing flashes, headlights from another era, screams that didn't belong to anyone present. One woman swore she heard a radio announcer reporting her own accident before it happened. When questioned later, she said the voice sounded old, distorted, like it came through water. Engineers tried redesigning the curve. It didn't matter. The road corrected itself. Asphalt cracked back into the old shape within months. Nature wasn't reclaiming it. Time was enforcing it. Arthur Bell, a retired insurance investigator, dedicated his life to Morrow Bend Road. Over 40 years, he cataloged every accident, every death, every survivor testimony. His conclusion chilled everyone who read it. This road replays moments that contain extreme fear. It doesn't trap people, it invites them. Arthur believed the road fed on emotional intensity, looping moments of terror like a broken record. His final visit was meant to prove it. He parked at the bend at 6:17 p.m., the exact minute of most fatal crashes. His car was found intact. Arthur was gone. The only thing left behind was his notebook, open to a single line, "I can hear them arriving." After Arthur's disappearance, something changed. Residents reported a metallic smell after sunset. Rainwater pooled red at the bend. Animals refused to cross. A road maintenance crew quit mid-shift after hearing cries coming from beneath the asphalt. One worker claimed the road surface felt warm, like skin. When authorities tried to shut the road permanently, every barrier mysteriously collapsed within days. Trees fell only toward the entrances, never blocking the center. It was as if the road wanted traffic, and it was patient. Time meant nothing to it. In 1994, a teenage boy named Lucas survived a crash that should have killed him. He claimed another version of himself was driving toward him from the opposite direction. When rescuers arrived, Lucas had gray hair, deep wrinkles, and arthritis in his hands. Doctors confirmed his body had aged nearly 50 years in minutes. Lucas refused to speak after that day, except once. He whispered to a nurse, "I didn't escape. I just arrived early." He died 3 years later of natural causes, officially the youngest man in state history to die of old age. Researchers later proposed a terrifying theory. Morrow Bend Road existed in multiple moments simultaneously. Past, present, and future overlapped like transparent film. Accidents weren't repeating, they were colliding. Each crash weakened the boundary further. Every scream echoed forward and backward through decades. The road wasn't cursed, it was unstable, and instability spreads. On October 17, 2022, every known accident time converged. Weather matched every historical crash report. Fog, light rain, low visibility. Traffic cameras recorded impossible footage, vehicles from different eras appearing at once, a 1950s truck, a 92nd sedan, a modern SUV, all occupying the same stretch of road. Then the feed cut. When it came back, the road was empty. No wreckage, no bodies, only fresh skid marks stacked on top of one another. The road had finally taken everything back. Long before it was called Morrow Bend Road, before asphalt or guardrails or warning signs, the land already bent strangely. Indigenous records, fragmented, translated poorly, often dismissed, spoke of a walking place, a strip of forest where footsteps echoed before they were taken. Hunters avoided it. Elders warned that fires burned colder there, that shadows lagged behind bodies. The place was not evil, they said. It was thin, a seam where moments rubbed against each other until they frayed. When settlers arrived in the late 1800s, they noticed the same unease, but unease doesn't stop progress, it only delays it. In 1909, a government surveyor named Harold Finch was assigned to map the area for a future transport route. His team reported that Finch vanished for 3 hours near dusk. When he returned, he was pale, shaking, and insisted he'd been gone for 3 days. His notes were worse. Finch had sketched a road that didn't exist yet, complete with a sharp bend, mile markers, and handwritten dates beside each curve. One date read 1952, another 1977. Finch resigned 2 weeks later and was found dead in 1946. Strangely, his death certificate listed his age as 112. He should have been 67. The Great Depression erased caution. Jobs mattered more than superstition. In 1930, construction began. Workers complained of lost time, lunch breaks stretching into night, conversations repeating word for word hours later. One foreman swore he watched a crew pour asphalt that had already hardened beneath their feet. The bend caused arguments. Engineers argued it should be straighter. Equipment failed whenever they tried. Survey stakes were found moved overnight, always back into the same cursed curve. Eventually, they stopped fighting it. The road was finished not as designed, but as allowed. Official records say nothing unusual was found during construction. Unofficial journals say otherwise. A buried stone chamber, smooth walls, no tool marks. Inside, workers uncovered a collapsed spiral of metal and bone fused together, humming faintly like distant traffic. When questioned decades later, the sole surviving worker said the object felt like an accident waiting to happen. It was reburied without study. Concrete sealed it in place. The humming never stopped. It simply sank deeper. Once traffic flowed, the road changed. Not structurally, behaviorally. It learned fear the way a mouth learns taste. Each crash added clarity. Each scream sharpened the loop. Survivors noticed delays, ambulances arriving before being called, police reports already typed. One officer claimed he pulled a body from a wreck and later met the same man alive at a gas station miles away. The man didn't remember the crash, but his hands were bandaged exactly where the corpse had been broken. In 1983, a woman named Margaret Ives entered Morrow Bend at dusk and never exited. Her car was seen on traffic cameras for hours, circling, passing the same marker again and again. Headlights aging from halogen to lead to something unrecognizable. The footage ends with Margaret looking directly into the camera, mouth forming a word no audio could capture. Linguists later suggested it wasn't a word at all, but a timestamp. Her car was never found. In 2022, a witness swore they saw an old sedan driving backward through the fog, its driver screaming in a young woman's voice. Seismic scans after the 2022 convergence revealed movement beneath the road, not shifting earth, rearranging layers. Past and future stacked like sediment. Researchers proposed a horrifying possibility: the buried object wasn't causing the anomaly. It was anchoring it, holding something vast in place, something that experiences time not as a line, but as pressure. And Morrow Bend Road, it was the release valve. A classified memo, leaked weeks after the road was permanently erased from maps, ended with a single recommendation: do not excavate, do not destroy, do not acknowledge. The structure beneath Morrow Bend is not broken, it is functioning. That same week, residents reported hearing engines at night, despite the road being gone. Tire tracks appeared in dew where asphalt no longer existed. And somewhere beneath the forest floor, something continued counting arrivals. Those who vanished on Morrow Bend were not erased. That was the first mistake investigators made. They assumed disappearance meant absence. In truth, the missing were contained. Time inside the bend didn't flow forward. It rotated, grinding moments against each other until they fused. People entered at different years but exited into the same instant, stacked like echoes. Some learned to walk the road without moving, drifting between seconds. Others relived their final breath endlessly, never realizing it had already happened. Satellite anomalies revealed something impossible beneath the forest canopy, a grid of streets that didn't exist on any map. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed foundations, doorways, stairwells, an entire town layered below the soil, phased slightly out of sync. Records later identified it as Havenbrook, a settlement planned in 1912 but abandoned before construction. Except it was built, just not in our time. Witnesses claim to hear church bells at night, ringing from underground, always 15 minutes slow. In the loop's deepest layer, time didn't rewind cleanly. It decayed. Exploratory footage from a sealed drone showed figures moving in reverse but forgetting as they did. Children grew smaller while losing language. Adults shed memories faster than years. One boy looked directly at the camera and asked, "Am I almost unborn?" The signal cut when the drone's internal clock reached a negative timestamp. The device returned 3 days before it was launched. Survivors reported voices that knew them intimately. Not ghosts, future remnants. People who had already lived their worst moment were bleeding backward through time to warn themselves. Most warnings failed, some succeeded too well. A man avoided the crash he was meant to die in, only to arrive later as the voice that once warned him. The loop didn't punish defiance, it reassigned roles. No one escaped being part of the structure. Deep beneath the bend, sensors detected rhythmic pulses, precise, patient, not a heartbeat, a tally. Every accident added pressure, every scream refined alignment. The buried structure was not a machine but a boundary marker, placed to keep something vast from fully intersecting our timeline. That entity did not experience pain or fear, but it understood them as fuel. The road wasn't feeding itself, it was feeding what waits to cross. On the anniversary of the 2022 convergence, emergency lines across 3 counties lit up simultaneously. Callers spoke in overlapping voices, finishing each other's sentences. Some identified themselves as missing persons from different decades. Others gave names that wouldn't be born for years. All said the same thing: it's widening. Then came the sound of traffic. Thousands of vehicles accelerating at once, followed by silence so complete it registered as pressure. Trees around the former road began leaning, not toward light, but toward alignment. Roots twisted into spirals, rings formed out of order. Botanists confirmed some trees were older on the inside than the outside. Animals fled inland. Birds avoided the sky above the bend as if it were solid. Something was preparing a surface. Roads were no longer required. The loop had learned to travel. A woman emerged from the forest in 2024, barefoot, uninjured, and screaming dates. She had no records, no fingerprints, no aging markers doctors could identify. When calmed, she wrote a single sentence over and over: "The road isn't a place anymore." Before sedation, she whispered one final warning: "You think time breaks here, but this is where it heals enough to move." She vanished from a locked hospital room 12 minutes later. All clocks inside stopped. The final classified files revealed the truth authorities never spoke aloud. Morrow Bend Road was not an accident, nor a failure of physics. It was a solution. Long before asphalt, before Finch, before the buried structure, something had begun pressing against our timeline, an entity too large to exist fully in a single moment. Destroying the road would not erase it. The road was a controlled fracture, a place where time could bend locally instead of tearing everywhere. Morrow Bend was never meant to be closed. It was meant to contain. Recovered footage from an erased research program showed visitors arriving decades before the road was built. They wore no insignia, carried no weapons, only instruments designed to measure regret, terror, and irreversible choice. They didn't construct the road from scratch. They guided it, nudged surveys, sabotaged straightening efforts, allowed crashes to happen when alignment weakened. One engineer, speaking into a corrupted log, said, "If fear doesn't accumulate here, it will disperse everywhere." They weren't saving lives, they were saving continuity. Every person lost on Morrow Bend paid a debt they never agreed to. Their final moments reinforced the boundary, tightening the seal. But the system was never infinite. Each loop degraded the structure beneath. Each replay widened the fracture. By 2022, the balance tipped. The convergence wasn't a feeding frenzy. It was a recall. The road gathered its scattered moments because the anchor could no longer hold them apart. After the convergence, accidents dropped to zero. Not because the danger ended, but because the road no longer needed victims. Time stabilized briefly, like a held breath. Then subtle changes appeared elsewhere. A bridge in another state repeated a collapse from 40 years earlier. A tunnel echoed screams from a future accident that hadn't happened yet. Morrow Bend didn't spread physically. It taught reality how to bend without it. The road was gone. The method remained months. After the last disappearance, seismic sensors recorded one final signal from beneath the former bend. A pattern, not words. Analysts translated it into a probability curve. showing timelines diverging, then narrowing again. A note appended to the analysis read, "Containment successful. Duration exceeded projections. Transfer complete." Whatever had been pressing against us had learned enough. It no longer needed a single road. It could slip anywhere fear pooled deeply enough. You won't find Morrow Bend Road on a map, but you might feel it when a drive seems longer than it should be, when a curve looks familiar before you reach it, when your headlights catch skid marks that fade as you slow down. If the radio announces an accident before you see it, turn around. Don't listen for screams. Don't stop. Because the road was never the danger. It was the warning. Hidden Dark World doesn't promise safety, only understanding, and even that comes late.